I always say you're kissing the wrong asses. Kiss the asses of assistants because they're not they don't get their asses kissed. They love it. I mean, who wouldn't give them some attention? They get abused all the time. Then they rise up eventually. So
Yeah.
those are the ones you got to be nice to. The assistants always. Hey everyone, it's Michael Jamin. Welcome back to Screenwriters Need to Hear This. I have a wonderful guest today. Uh, this is I'm going to tell you the story of how we met. So as you know, the Writers Guild of America is on strike, and my next guest is a well-known sitcom writer, although we've never worked together over the years. So our paths, haven't really crossed, but we know all the same people. And then we were on the picket line outside of CBS Radford, and we started chatting, and we had a really nice talk. And I was like, well, I got to bring this guy on the podcast. So everyone, if you're driving your car, please pull over, put your hands together. A warm round of applause for Mr. Jonathan Fener. Let me give you some of his credits before I let him talk. You'll notice it's a 45-minute podcast, and I do talking for about 44 minutes of it. But I'm going to talk about your credits. He wrote on the Bette Midler Show, Veronica's Closet, Do-Over, Kid Notorious, It's All Relative, Method and Red, Father of the Pride. You remember that one with Siegfried and Roy? The 78th Annual Academy Awards. I want to talk about that. American Dad, we know that. Happy Endings, Old Soul, Telenovela, The Mindy Project. How come that wasn't a show? Why was that just a project? Trolls, Holiday, LA to Vegas, American Housewife, Trolls, Holiday in Harmony. We'll talk about that. And most recently, the iCarly reboot, as well as Mulaney. But this guy's been around the block. John, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So I want to know all about your history. Let's take it back from the beginning when your great-grandparents met. Let's really do a deep dive into your life.
Eastern Europe.
Eastern Europe.
Let's go back to Eastern Europe.
But tell me, okay, so how did you first break into the business, and did you always know you wanted to be a sitcom writer?
Yeah, even when I didn't know that's what I wanted to do, I look back and I'm like, oh, that's what I wanted to do. I feel like I'm part of a generation that, back to watching television shows, videotaping, Saturday Night Live and sitcoms and like I used to audio tape them.
To study them?
Yeah, and like I would watch Saturday Night Live even when I was old. It wasn't old enough to like watch it. I would tape it on the VCR that we had, the one that popped up over the top, and then I would have and then in the morning I'd watch it all day, and I used to make mixtapes, I guess video mixtapes, where I would like mix and match different sketches that I liked, and then I used to listen to those all the time. And then I'd watch television shows. I did do that thing where I would tape television shows, and then I would try and like write out the script. I didn't know what the formatting was. So I always was interested in. Yes.
You would write it kind of word for word, or you'd write your own?
I'd write it word for word. I would transcribe.
Because that made you a writer then? Did you think what was the point of that?
Well, it's like this is going to sound douchey maybe, but I remember reading this quote. I think Hunter S. Thompson once said that he used to just type pages of The Great Gatsby just to feel what it was like to write those words. Yeah. And so you can draw a direct line between me and Hunter S. Thompson and The Great Gatsby and, the Bette Midler Show. Like they're basically one-to-one.
But then, okay, go on. So then, as a kid,
I was a huge comedy fan. I was a huge movie, television, everything fan. Stand-up comedy. I loved stand-up comedy. Right. So was always too afraid to do it. But I mean, I always knew I wanted to be part of making that comedy, television, movies, all that stuff. So I went to. Fast forward, I went to USC. I didn't go to the film school, but I just wanted to be in LA. And I guess sort of the way it sort of goes, you get out of school, and I knew a guy that I went to school with who worked at a talent agency, and he got me a job as a messenger. when they were still in
As a
existence.
messenger. And so you
Yeah.
were driving around town delivering envelopes. That
With
sounds
my
horrible.
Thomas guide,
With your
because there
Thomas
was
guide, right?
no, yeah, in the heat and the traffic. And
How long did you do that for?
I was probably a messenger for about, I don't know, matter of months, maybe like 3, 4, 5 months, and then a desk opens up, and then you're answering phones.
Oh,
So
so you didn't have to go to the mailroom. You went from messenger to
it really wasn't a mailroom. It was a very small talent agency.
okay.
It was called the Irv Schechter Company. I don't know
Sure.
if you ever,
No, I've
and
heard
it
it.
was like back in the day where, he mostly represented like TV writers. They had a whole below the line department. It was a small agency, and they didn't
Boutique.
really have a mail-in boutique. Yeah,
Boutique.
they had a
So
lot of like guys that were like supervising producers on Magnum, stuff like
but
that.
that's a good deal. But then, so how long? Because I was an assistant at William Morris for 3 days. I got fired on my second day, and I go, but I stuck out the week. I finished the week. So I applaud you for being that. It's just a hard job being an assistant for an agent. At least I found it was.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was an assistant for a lot of different people. I think it helped that it was kind of, I don't know if low, I guess low stakes, because it wasn't like I wasn't at CAA, I wasn't at, William Morris. I
Right.
was at this tiny little agency, and this woman I worked for was, she represented like stunt coordinators and people like
Oh.
that. So not that, look, I still had to do the like rolling calls thing and all that stuff,
Did you?
but
But did that give you contacts? Like, what did that? What was your takeaway from doing that job for however long?
honestly, a lot of the jobs I had until I was a writer were, it taught me what I didn't want to do. I'm
Yes.
like, oh, I work for an agent. I don't want to be an agent.
Right.
And then there's like a network of assistants
Mm-hmm.
where, there was another agent there, this really nice woman named Deborah Lieb. I still remember her. She called me in one day. She's like, what do you want to do? What are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I think I want to write, but, maybe I want to be a creative exec. I wasn't sure. So she
Okay.
was like, well, I have a friend who works at Fox, and they need an assistant. So, if you want to get out of here and go work there. And I was like, great. So I went to go work for this other woman. And then I would just meet assistants, and they would offer me other jobs. I worked for this guy. Um, my biggest assistant job is I worked for this guy, John Matoyan, who was the president of the Fox Network.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time where I saw an entire television season from pitches, development, scripts, and shooting all the way through. Because
Right.
I was on his desk, and I read every script that came across his desk. That was like, I don't know if you remember that guy, or even like that was the year, that was like in the early mid 90s when they were like maybe going to try and do like Friends. Like they had this show called Partners, and Ned and
Yep.
Stacey, and
Ned and
like
Stacey. Yep.
it was becoming a little bit more of like, let's try and make a Friends clone. So like the X-Files was happening then. It was just
Right.
like, I had one year where I had an entire overview of television, and I'm like, and then I would read the scripts, and I'm like, I think I can do this. I
So
can.
where did you learn to write then? What was the next step?
I just figured it out. I mean, I think that what happened was I met my partner, who was my friend,
Yeah.
Josh Bicel, and we were buddies. And he was at UCLA in screenwriting school, actually. And
Okay.
he was actually writing with his dad. Him and his dad were writing a script together. It was very interesting. And we would just talk about stuff, and then so the story is that we had another friend who was a PA on this show called The Single Guy.
Yep.
Remember that show with Jonathan
Yes.
Silverman?
Jonathan Silverman. Yep.
The
Yeah.
Brad Hall show. And he used to bring home scripts every week, and
Yeah.
we would read them, and we were like, I can't remember, one of us pitched an idea, but funny if they did an episode, whatever, like in real time of whatever. And then we're like, we should write it. Let's just write it. We know how to do it. We should just write it. So we sat down and wrote this script, and I thought it was pretty good. And and again, the assistant network was, we knew somebody who was an assistant to Richard Weitz at the time,
Yep.
who was a young guy. And
A young agent. He was ICM probably, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just one of these things where like, after a while, I was assistant for 3, 4 years, and I had access because all the young people that I was working with were now becoming executives or agents.
Yep.
So there were people you could actually hand your script to. They would read it as opposed to just throwing it in a pile.
Right.
And the long and the short of it was Richard read the script because Brad was a client of his. And I remember he called me at my house and he was like, your friend Mallory gave me your script. I think it's funny. And I think that you need to write something else because no one will read a single guy. He's like, I only read it because I represent Brad, but no one will read. He's like, you have to write Friends, you have to write Seinfeld, you have to write News Radio, whatever. So that was kind of the first thing where we were like, hey, we can maybe do this.
That's interesting because this is what I say, because people always say, like, well, do I have to move to Hollywood to break into Hollywood? It's like, well, this is how you do it. You get these jobs, you become an assistant and you network, you get on the network, and then that's how you make connections. So that's what you did. I wonder, do you think the assistant network is still as strong now? I mean, so everything's changing so much.
Yeah, it's a good question. It's like, that's the age-old question. Like, how do you break in? And, I felt for years now that, like, maybe that's not the way it's done anymore. I mean, maybe I'm just looking at, like, stuff as, like, an older guy where, like, I look at people and I go, I don't know, can't you make your own television show on your phone or something? Like, but, you still need some kind of access, I think. And maybe I can't wrap my mind around it a little bit, but, like, it just seems like if you write something, if you make something, someone's got to watch it. Someone's got to see it that can make a decision for you or help you. Right. And that's about relationships.
But then so what was your next step? How did you get on staff?
We wrote a bunch of specs, and we had some friends that were becoming agents. A guy that I was an assistant with a guy who became an agent, and he was a paradigm. We worked with him for a little bit, but it was weird because, like, we were friends, and, like, when things don't go so well, sometimes it's like it's messing up the relationship. So I think we just were able to look. We anybody that would read our script that was a young agent, we would somehow try and get to them, and everybody passed. One guy at ICM signed us. I mean, I remember very clearly getting a phone call. My partner and I, Josh, our birthdays are a week apart. We really were like, we were friends. We were, we like intertwined lives, but we were having like a joint birthday party, and we got a phone call that they wanted to sign us, and that was a big fucking deal.
And they submitted you to which show? What was the first show then? Well,
this is funny how things work too. So his one big connection was this woman. Shit. Her name was Debbie. Oh, this is embarrassing.
That's okay.
She ran Bright Kaufman Crane. She was like their development person.
Right.
And I feel bad that I don't remember her name because she was sweet. But that was a good relationship that he had. So they submitted us for Veronica's Closet.
Right.
It had done a year. It did well, Kirstie Alley's back to TV, and it was Thursday night.
Yeah.
NBC. I mean, it was a huge show. And
let's take it back for a second. That used to be a big time slot. Thursday night NBC. Now I don't even know what they're doing there, but maybe it's reality
fire. Something fire.
Is it some dumpster fire? But that's the one. But this is something else that you bring up, which I think is really interesting. People always like, you're kissing. I always say you're kissing the wrong asses. Kiss the asses of assistants because they're not they don't get their asses kissed. They love it. I mean, who wouldn't give them some attention? They get abused all the time. Then they rise up eventually. So yeah. Those are the ones you got to be nice to. The assistants always,
Oh yeah, Christmas. Send them get the gift card. Do the thing. I mean, they'll put your call through. I mean, look. I mean, they can do only so much, but it's just, again, everybody. Even if it's the same trajectory, everybody's story is a little bit different, and it was. I think we were. I think we were lucky, but it was also, it was, you know, I hate to sound like I'm 1,000 years old, but it was a very different time.
Yeah.
And, you know, staffing was like,
There were
it
more
almost seemed like
opportunities.
so many opportunities. And it was
Yeah.
just like, it almost seemed like it wasn't like, you know, if I'm going to get staffed, it was sort of like, where am I going to get staffed?
Right.
But you know, you sweat it out, and I never felt like that. I mean, and for every we I don't think, you know, look, I think we were good, and still are, but
Mhm.
you know, I never felt like we were juggling offers. You
Yeah.
know, it was definitely like, you know, okay, we got this gig, you know,
Yeah.
thank God.
People don't realize that as well. Like once you're in, it's great. It's that first job is hard, but you always got to worry. You got to worry about your next job. None of it's you know. If people think, well, you know, it's like you must have it made, but you don't. You never have it made. You're always hustling. Um,
Never.
what did you feel your first season as a staff writer? Did you feel comfortable? Did you feel like in over your head?
Um, Honestly, no. I can say that with confidence. I felt like I got there and I was like, yeah, this is what I should be doing.
Oh, you
I'm
fit
not
in,
just, yeah, you know, look, we were the youngest guys that, you know, we were the staff writers, the
right?
baby writers. It was a very challenging place to work. I mean, you know, Bright Kaufman Crane, you know, look, we could do an entire podcast on just working on Veronica's Closet and just literally being down the hall from season 5 of Friends. It's like the Beatles,
Yes.
their dressing room is down the hall, and I'm, you know, with Jerry and the Pacemakers or something. Not that that's a great reference, by the way, for all your
Yeah,
younger
I don't even know.
listeners.
Yeah.
Just some, but it was like, and the show was, you know, it was what it was. It was funny. There were tons of funny people on that show, people I still talk to this day, honestly. But it was like the culture of that, and I think it's not a new story in sitcoms, but you know, we watched the sun come up all the time, and that
Really?
was my first step. It was like I had never done it before, but I was like, I knew immediately. I'm like, the way it this is not the way it should be, right?
Was it because stories were being tossed out or notes from the network or what?
Yeah, it was poor management, I will
Oh,
say.
time
It was
management.
poor time management. You know, I always
Yeah.
say, like, you know, when you work on a show with terrible hours, you're just like you're a victim of somebody else's bad work
Well,
habits.
there's that. Yeah. Yeah. I always felt very when we were running a show, I was like I always felt I would crack the whip just because I felt like I want people to go home. I want to stop messing around. And I was a hard ass in that way because I want to go home and I think you want to go home too, don't you? You know, like let's just work and go home. Um,
Those are the ones that don't want to go home. Those are the
yeah,
worst.
those are the worst, right? Were you on many shows like that where you felt like a hostage?
No, well, let me think. Not really. That was the worst. And then there were a couple other shows that were rough, but I think that like as time went on, I definitely got lucky as time went on that I worked for decent people. Um,
Well, you
who
also had
did,
another show that was basically the stepchild, which was American Dad compared to Family Guy. I mean, Family Guy was this behemoth. Not that American Dad was any slouch, but you're still in the shadow of a Family Guy, right?
that's right. The other one. Yeah, the
Yeah.
other show, but yeah, and that was good point. No, but and animation was something that you know, we got into pretty early on too, and I really, really liked that. And you know, there's animation usually is not terrible because the deadlines are way far apart.
Yeah.
Like as far as like, you know, like multicam is probably the worst because it literally you got to rewrite it tonight
At
because
4 o'clock, you start your day, basically. Yeah. After
yeah,
the
run
rehearsal.
through is
Yeah.
it ruins your whole night. And then it's like someone has, like, if you're doing single camera, you know, you're usually reading a script for the next week, so you know, you want to get it done by tonight, but you know, maybe you can leave a couple of jokes and then the next day you can like sort of clean it up.
Right.
But like multicam, they're at rehearsal at 9
Yeah.
a.m, so they need a script.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was your joint. You were on the Warner Brothers lot. All right, so then what happened? I'm going through your credits over here. So Veronica's Closet, and then whatever. What was you were there for? Well, how many seasons was that? The show was what?
They
Two
did
seasons?
they did
Three.
three. I was on the last two.
The last two, and then when it was done, what happened?
Um, when it was done, I was like, I I did it. No, I was like, we just got back out in the staffing pool,
Right, and then you just jumped.
We yeah, that was the next season. We got on the Bette Midler show, which at the time was like massive. It was a
That was
massive
massive.
gig.
And
And
then,
that's another, I'm sorry to interrupt. I was going to say, like,
please.
that's an interesting story where, you know, I don't know if you think of like two 26-year-old guys as like, yeah, we got to get those guys on the Bette Midler show.
Mhm.
But our agent submitted us. And at the time, we were even thinking to ourselves, like, what samples can we write that are a little different? So we wrote a Buffy the Vampire Slayer script just because like we liked the show and
Right.
the tone, and so we wrote that, and I think we were like maybe we can look and see about maybe getting on like an hour or something like that, and then it just so happens that Joss Whedon I think worked for the guy that created that show, Bet.
Who
So
created it?
he
I wanted to say Cohan and Mushnick, but no, I don't think that's right. Who created it?
Jeffrey Lane,
Jeffrey Lane, of course. Right.
who
Right.
was a big Mad About You dude,
Yes. And then
and
then working for Bet, I mean, that's a whole other thing. You have this oversized star, really a giant star, and she must have had a lot of creative input.
yeah, she had opinions, but
Yeah.
no, she was. It was it was nuts. I mean, they picked that show up for a full season, which
Mhm.
even then wasn't a thing, and she she just was like such a massive force,
Yeah.
almost too big for television, I would even say. Like I remember thinking she's on the stage, and I'm like, and I mean the soundstage, like I can see her playing Caesars just
Yeah.
live, or in the movies where she's gigantic, but there's I don't know if muting is the right word, but you know what I mean? Like there's just something about those mediums that like sort of, and I just think on TV, she just was like massive, just like, but, really funny. And she did everything, she sang the Rose, and it was like, pulled out all the stops. It was almost like, and I don't think she knew what being on a television show entailed. I think when you take people that have never worked in TV and put them on TV, they're like, I have to come back again tomorrow and
Yeah.
it's a new script today, and like they're used to shooting films, but even like it's a grind for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
So
She became a little cantankerous, you think?
I think, yeah, no, you know she liked me. She liked me and my partner. We wrote this episode actually with Kobe Bryant in it.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and I think they were like, get the young guys to write this. And and he agreed to do the show. I think his wife was a huge Bette Midler fan. I think he said, I mean, he was a nice guy. I remember meeting him. And the show, I mean, think about this. We shot our episode in the Forum. Like, and the plot of the show was that Bette becomes like, she basically accidentally gets onto the court and she starts dancing with the Laker girls. I
But
don't
it
know
was a
how it
multicam.
happened.
It was a multicam, right?
Yeah, but
And you shot in
they
the front.
shot it on the Forum. I mean,
Okay.
on the Forum. And it was the kind of thing where it was like, whatever it cost, it cost.
Right.
They booked the Forum, and that episode sort of turned out okay. And then I think she felt like, oh, these guys get the show, so they took us out. She took us out to lunch, and she's like, what should the show be? You guys
Oh
seem to have.
no. Oh
And we're
no. And
like,
you guys are story editors at this point.
right,
See, I would be
right.
panicked about that. That's not good. So I have
Rob
two.
Cohen was at that lunch too.
Oh, she took Rob. See, that's
She
the
loved
thing.
Rob. Loved Rob.
My rule of thumb early in my career is don't let the actors know your name because only bad things can come of it. And then right. So she takes you, and now you're maybe you don't want to talk about this, but that puts you in a difficult position because she should be taking the showrunner, and the showrunner should be bouncing you. She should be bouncing the ideas and not.
Yeah, it was I mean, I didn't know it. We were just like, well, just do more of this stuff, right?
Right.
Well, go to a baseball game. Or I just think look, I think that she was searching for what the show was. I think the
Right.
showrunner was, I think they just were, and it was a weird, not a weird premise, but it was like she played a character named Bet, and she played a character that was a famous Hollywood actress and had been in a movie called The Rose and all these things that were true, but
Right.
she kept saying, but I'm not Bette Midler.
She would say that in the show, but I'm not Bette Midler.
She would say that to us
oh,
because
okay.
we would write jokes, and she's like, but I'm not Bette Midler. And we're like, but you were in The Rose. And we're like, okay, Bette Schmidler, you're Bette Schmidler. Yeah. And a lot of stuff that happened to her in real life, we would try and put into the show. But it was like, it was just one of those things where we were just trying to find our footing and never really found it.
Wow, but that's pretty cool though. I mean, hanging out with Bette Midler is pretty cool.
She was something else, man. She was like I said, like a force, like just funny and just larger than life. And
well, we did Just Shoot Me, and George Segal, of course, was in the '70s. There was no bigger actor than George Segal. I mean, he was huge.
Isn't that funny?
And then so he's on Just Shoot Me, and we wrote an episode, and George could not have been a sweeter guy. Such a nice guy and a great sense of humor. But there was one episode, I guess he wasn't happy with what he was playing. Maybe he didn't have enough lines, or maybe he thought his storyline was dumb or whatever. But I remember we were all the writers rehearsal, and George goes, I was nominated for an Emmy. I'm sorry, he was, I was nominated for an Oscar. You know that, right? And one of the writers goes, yeah, that was a long time ago, George, get in the dunk tank. And George thought that was so funny. I mean, he, like, to his credit, he just laughed. He thought it was great.
That's so funny.
That's what's fun about working with some of these, some of these old timers are great. Some of them are, a little difficult. Who knows? All right. So then at what point did you guys start developing your own shows? Because that's always a big leap.
We were kind of like wanting to do that early. And I remember that was another thing that was not encouraged.
Yeah. Not then it wasn't.
At all. It was just sort of like, it was the tail end of it, but it was kind of just like, here's the model. Get on staff, work your way up to producer, supervising producer, get a deal, and then you develop. So that was the road. But we were like, no, we have some ideas, and if they don't want to listen to us at NBC, then maybe they'll listen to us at MTV. So we had heard that MTV was looking to develop shows, cheap show. I mean, it's like that thing every couple of years, MTV's like, we want to do scripted, and then they would hardly ever do it. But we had this idea that we would do, because they wanted to repurpose videos, but somehow do it in a scripted way. So we had this idea that we would do like Dream On, but with music videos. So it was about a kid whose interior monologue was music videos instead of old movies. And just seemed, it was like risky business, but the kid is 16 and he's just that. So we sold that. We actually sold that and wrote it, and it never got shot. But that was like pretty early. That was like a couple of years in. And we sold a movie. Like, we were kind of like trying a bunch of stuff, but I think that we early on were like, I feel like we should do our own stuff too. So I always have said like I don't know what it's like to have just like one job. I always feel like I was doing two things at once. So like eventually, if people are always like they're on staff, like I was always on staff, and then on the weekends I was working on the other thing.
You see, people don't understand how exhausting that is, because you're on staff, you're working very long days, and then on the weekends you're working more. It's good for you when you're, it's hard. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, it was hard, and I think it was the right. Look, I was married, but I didn't have any kids, and but it was tough, man. I mean, and that was back before we were Zooming. So like I'd go to Josh's house, he'd come to my house. I mean, we used to literally meet in the middle and trade.
Oh, because you guys did you live far apart from each other?
Yeah. We usually
trade floppy disks. So I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but but I'm curious to know, well, first of all, I want to know what was the Academy, how did you work on the Academy Awards? How did that come about? That's such an odd turn for
That
you.
Yeah, that was the connection there was that was the year Jon Stewart hosted. I don't know if that
Mhm.
was his first time. I know he did a bunch of times. It was the year of Crash won the
Okay.
best picture, and like Philip Seymour Hoffman won for Capote. But John was hosting, and he brought out like a bunch of Daily Show people. And my partner went to college with a guy, Ben Carlin,
Yes.
who I kind of became friends with too because of those guys. So Ben was running the Daily Show. He was one of the EPs. And so when he came out, he called me and Josh and a couple of other guys and asked if we wanted to be part of the staff of people. Basically, the Daily Show guys wrote the monologue. They asked us, the LA guys, to write like short film parodies of the nominees.
Right.
So, and then maybe help out with and on show night we would be part of the joke room because they're writing jokes throughout the
Right.
night. With like, I mean, Bruce Valanche was there and some of the old school guys were there. But so yeah, so we basically pitched like 20 little short film things, and they picked 5 or 6 of them, and then we got to produce them and all that. But we were part of that whole thing.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really, really fun. And like on show night, we literally, they put us down in this basement, and we're like watching the show live, and it was like instant messaging. If somebody won something, we would like shoot a bunch of jokes up to them in the wings.
But did you have to wear a tuxedo to do that?
Yes.
In my mind, I knew it. In my mind, you have to wear a tuxedo, even though you're not going to be on camera, but you're at the Oscars. Wow. They tell you that. Because
because we were, I mean, it was really cool. I mean, we went to, my wife and Josh's wife and all the wives got to go to the show. They got tickets to the show. We were downstairs, and then afterwards we went to the governor's ball. I mean, it was really, I mean, we had access.
That's a trip.
I didn't get a gift bag. I was really hoping I'd get like because I'm like, there's like a trip to Australia, in there or something. But
but you got a nice paycheck. That kind of counts for something.
I don't remember how much we got paid. I don't know if it was. I feel like, I don't know.
Now, what
was great, though.
What about the Mindy Project? Because that was like that must have been a big experience for you.
Yeah, that was fun, and that was when we had a deal at Universal, and we were kind of lucky. Like that was when I worked on the Mulaney show, and we did a lot of development when we were there, and we supervised and ran a couple of shows there. But that was sort of towards the end where they just asked us to come and help out for a season. Yeah, and it was like it's one of those things though where it was a very tight, well-oiled machine, and it was fine. It was kind of funny though, because it was like this sort of happens where you write pilots, you shoot pilots, you run shows, but then sometimes you're a staff guy again.
Yeah.
And that was a gig where we were sort of like, all right, we're part of the staff, and everybody there was like really funny, really smart. Like I think that writer's room literally had like 3 former Lampoon editors, and just like really, really funny, smart guys and women. And we just were like, okay, we're just pitching jokes.
And then it says that's a whole experience. But did Mindy run the show? Was she the showrunner of it?
I mean, she had, there was a guy named Matt Warburton who was sort of running the room when she was gone, because the most impressive thing was that she shot all day.
Yes.
Because it was a single camera show. She was the star of the show, but she came in at lunch and Matt would pitch her, and she very efficiently was like, I love this. I love this. What if this happens? What if this happens? Gotta go. And so she had the final say, but she was busy, and that I'm trying to think. Mulaney was that way too, but Mulaney was really part of the writing, and that was also a multicam. So,
and that was probably that Mulaney show was probably 3 years too soon. Like like before he really became huge.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, that was, I think that like this was my opinion, and I'm not like making this up. I remember we used to talk like John was trying. I feel like John was trying to do something where everyone just looked at it and at face value and said, "Oh, it's Seinfeld. He's just doing Seinfeld." But I think he really, really liked the medium. He liked multicam, but there was a part of it that I think was a little bit satirical. But it really, I think that if you didn't know that, you're just like, oh, he's just is just the like I feel like some of the stories that he pitched he felt were funny because it's like, oh, this is kind of a clammy story, but I think it's funny, and like I'm doing it with a wink. But I think people maybe saw it and said,
there's
I
no
don't,
wink. I don't see the
yeah,
wink.
there's the, yeah, and but it was, it's not that it was the wrong vehicle because it was his show, and he is the funniest guy in the room always, I mean, and Nassim Pedrad was in the cast too. She was really funny. There was a great cast. Elliot Gould was on that show. Martin Short was on that show.
Yeah,
It was like it was really, really fun. But yeah, maybe it was, I think maybe he was trying to like not reinvent the multicam, but just like turn it on its head a little bit, and it maybe wasn't, no one was like ready for that.
Hey, it's Michael Jamin. If you like my videos and you want me to email them to you for free, join my watch list. Every Friday, I send out my top 3 videos. These are for writers, actors, creative types. You can unsubscribe whenever you want. I'm not going to spam you, and it's absolutely free. Just go to michaeljamin.com/watchlist.
Did you, because whenever we develop for comics, we wind up studying them. We watch their act, listen to their whatever, the audio books, or read their. Did you do the same as well for
I just knew. You mean for that show, or
for Mulaney, or for any comic that you're writing for, really, or even like Bet, for example.
Well, Bet, I mean, we definitely like combed through her career and her life and tried to get stories from it. Yeah, whenever, and the Mulaney thing, we kind of like, we were also, that was a period of time where like we were on that staff for a period of time, and then we had a pilot picked up and went to go shoot it. So we were sort of there for a specific period of time, but like that show was all him to me. I mean, he ran that with a guy, John Pollock, a good friend of mine, who's also like, he's such a good,
he's a pro
guy. He's a pro and can guide things. He's so funny and smart. But so I think that they really clicked well, and there were a lot of really funny people on that staff too. But yeah, I think that to answer your question, it's always good, especially if you're dealing with somebody who's going to put a little bit of their lives into it, to just, because I mean, frankly, you kind of want to like connect with them too. Like it's something that they can connect with.
Right.
Unless they don't want to do it, unless they want to be completely a different person. If they're being some version of themselves, yeah.
What's so odd is that you and I have never worked together, even though we work with so many of the same people. It seems like very odd that, how did that never happen? But how do you see, like, so, okay, we're on strike. How do you see the business now? Like, what's your take on the past, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, or,
Everything's going great. It's great.
Everything's perfect.
And just getting better. Everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah.
No, I think to me, it feels like it's a massive sea change. It really feels like, even having lived through the first strike, like that was, streaming was just kind of coming around, and Netflix was a thing, but now everything has completely been disrupted, and I just think that I mean, look, this is nothing new, but like, to me, cable seemed to be working okay, and then streaming came in, and it just seemed like there were no parameters. It's like all the streaming services come came around, and I understood economically that like all the studios are going to want to have their own thing and not have to license it to anybody anymore. But without the structure of a schedule, like a nightly schedule, it's just like it just became a bottomless pit. And so there was this it was the Wild West again. And there's a billion shows, and some of these studios, I guess, were just like, wait, this is so expensive, like a full staff for every show, and we're making so many shows. We need to now it's like we overspent. Now we need to back up a little bit, and then, but in the meantime, to me, I just felt like it was like the rules got changed, where there was a somewhat of a model in network television and even cable where it's like, we're going to pick this show up for X number of episodes. We're going to have this many people on staff. That's the way it's done. And then now it's like, oh, we have this new area of streaming. We're just going to do things differently now. We're going to hire 3 people, or the guy that created the show is just going to write them all and then shoot them all. And it just, I don't, it's I mean, all I can do is keep doing what I do, but it's it seems more, it really it feels like the ground underneath us is that much more
shaky,
like, really shaky.
How do you, and what's your take? I don't know if you work a lot with young, well, let's see, I have 2 questions I want to ask you, because your last network show was what, the Mindy Project? Because I haven't worked in the network for a while. It's all been cable, right?
The last network show I worked on was American Housewife.
Oh, so it's so interesting, which wasn't even that long ago. And so you're working with there's bigger staffs on network, and they're bringing in younger writers. What's it like? What are the kids like? Do you think they're different these days on network shows? Because we had a hierarchy. There was a pattern. There was a, we broke in.
Yeah. I think it's probably better. I mean, I worked in some rough rooms, and then I worked in some more, I don't feel like I ran a rough room.
What do you mean by rough room? What were they like?
Just the real hierarchy. Like when I was a staff writer, you were not really expected to talk very much.
Right.
It was kind of like sit and listen.
Right.
But and then I'd pitch something, and they'd be like, not now. And I'd say, I'm sorry. And they'd say, don't be sorry. Just be quiet.
Don't let it happen again.
Don't be sorry. Just be quiet. And like, look, it was always done with a joke. You know what I mean? And like, I don't ever feel like I was treated cruelly. I mean, I guess it was cruel that, I did feel like I was held hostage and, going home at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning in rush hour traffic the wrong way. Like my nights and days were mixed up. But like eventually, what I was going to say was, I just feel like there was something to earning it a little bit. I just feel like, even those first jobs, like especially like Bright Kaufman Crane, I remember there were certain things that they were big on floor pitching. On show night, and that's great experience. I mean, look, multicams aren't around as much as they used to be, but like I remember learning a ton. Like I can still shoot back to the time we were on show night and a joke bombed, and then you just huddle up and you're just staring at each other, and everyone's thinking, and you got to come up with an alt, and people are pitching stuff, and it's like, and you pitch a joke and everybody laughs, and you're like, oh my God,
you're the hero.
Amazing. And then they put it in and it dies.
And then it dies. Yeah. That's what so for the people listening, that's what a floor pitch is. On show night on a multicam, where you at the last minute throw a joke in after one bombs. So
right. And then you finally you give up and you just pitch a joke with the word nipple in it. And people laugh at that, and you're like, I hate myself.
Yeah.
But no, but I think that now, like being the older guy and even running a show, like there is a certain level of like everybody has an equal voice, and which I think is good, but I also think that it's not that you're less than at all. To me, it was always about like experience. Like you just gotta, what it is? There's no substitute for being able to read the room.
Yeah.
And there are people sometimes that are younger and less experienced, and they pitch an idea and no one says anything, which is like the worst is if someone says that sucks.
Right.
But if you pitch a joke or a story and no one really like jumps on it, no one yes ands it, you know what? Let it float away, because and then if you repitch it and then you repitch it,
you're gonna get yelled at.
You're gonna get yelled at. Like that's just not cool. And I feel like sometimes maybe people don't like that anymore.
Yeah,
like you're not supposed to do
you.
that.
What surprised? It's so hard. There's a huge learning curve on the job. And when someone pitches an idea, if it's a good idea, it really doesn't matter who it comes from, but it's pretty obvious when it's a good idea. Like the senior writer's like, oh, that's good, right? And if you're new and experienced, you just don't know what's a good idea from a bad idea. And I think they sometimes get a little offended or hurt. It's not. It's just the idea. It's not you.
Right.
The idea didn't land.
Sometimes it's them. No.
Sometimes it's them.
But yeah, best idea wins. Always. Always.
Best idea gets you home faster. And so yeah, I know. Wait, I was going to ask you something else. That's how I was going to say how we met. We met years ago because you were running a show, which is an interesting thing that you did. Was that you were running a show called Awesome Town, but you were running it. Someone else with a less experienced writer wrote it, and you guys were brought on to supervise it, right?
Right.
So talk about your experience doing that kind of stuff.
That was the first time we'd ever done that. We've done that a bunch, just because I feel like my partner and I, that's not really something that a lot of people love to do, like run other people's shows. Everybody wants to, get your own thing. And we were writing our own pilots at the time too. But if you get enough experience, honestly, my feeling is you want to have as many skills as possible in this business, because, you want to just have another arrow in your quiver.
Yeah.
That's the right term. But like, so if you can successfully help someone just guide the ship, and it's their show and they've never done it before, because that's the really hard
Were there
job.
Creative struggles though between you and them at all when you do this?
No, honestly, no. I really feel like it was this guy, Adam Stekiel, who's like a super nice guy. He's like a big feature guy now. I think he wrote Black Adam. He like works with The Rock a lot, and he created Undateable with Bill Lawrence too. So he's had a bunch of stuff. No, he's a very nice guy, very funny, and it was actually kind of cool that he got this job on. It was basically just about these four like early 20s friends and negotiating life afterwards, and they threw a lot of stuff. It's funny. I remember they picked the show up because I feel like ABC was looking to do something in the younger space,
right?
But it was one of those shows. It was very low contact, and there was a whole opening teaser that I always suspected this is why it got picked up, because it was very American Pie. It was like kind of dirty, and there was like a couple, and somebody had peanut butter on them, and a dog was licking, and you can imagine. So, but I remember thinking like, this is why they picked it up, because this is outrageous. There's no way they ever shoot this though.
Right.
Which is like, that's like an age-old story in TV. It's like the thing they love about it is the thing they cut first.
It's exactly right.
It's like you pick up a show called like Immortal because the lead character has been alive for 1,000 years, and then the first note is, can we make him mortal, please?
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And you do it because you're like, oh, they just picked up the show. They just gave me a budget, and so they made a bunch of changes to this show, and including changing that entire teaser. But it was just an opportunity that came because, again, like I think we had written a pilot for the studio that made it, and they needed somebody with, like, we had just gone through
deal. You probably had a deal at the time, an overall deal, right?
I don't know if we had it. Like, you know what? We did. I think we had just sold a pilot to like 20th. And it was like a very good experience, but it just was one of those shows that like almost got there, but didn't. But then they picked up all their other shows and they're like, oh, we're going to pick up this show with these guys. And we had a good relationship with the development people that like, you know, maybe John and Josh can help with that. So that was awesome. That was like, and I remember like we cast whoever we want. Like we changed roles because we found like I'd never seen Brett Gelman before, and he came in and was so funny. We're like, we're putting him in the show somehow. He was easily 10 years older than everybody. What was supposed to be a coworker. Ali Wong came in. We're like, let's create a intern. But it was like it was the first. It was a good gig to get, and then from there we got a bunch more of those gigs to sort of like
see that's a talent because I think sometimes when you have a young creator will create a show, then they assign a showrunner. Sometimes the showrunner's like, well, listen, my name's on this too, and I don't want this to have I don't have a stink on me if this is terrible. So they kind of turn it into what they want it to be. It doesn't sound like you did that. It sounds like you were very much trying to realize the vision of the person who create these shows, which is nice of you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just the way that we are. I mean, I just feel like that's the first, like, and look, by the way, that's probably a good way to get the gig is to go have lunch with them and go, listen, your show, man, we're just here to help you carry the water from here to there.
Right.
And we know how to do it. And, but that is the truth. I mean, honestly, like, I don't want it to be bad, but like, you know, and like, I'll tell you what I think, I'll give you my opinion, but also like, again, I don't know anybody that could ever do that job alone. Like it's miserable and not miserable, you know what I mean? And we owe, and plus, you know, you could relate to this too, just being on a writing staff is collaborative anyway, but being in a writing partnership, you just really learn how to negotiate, compromise and talking it out. And, you know, single writers tend to be really, you know, hold on to their stuff because there's never any other counterpoint. So I feel like we had the right skill set for that. Yeah.
There's also a sense of there's so many decisions to be made. If I don't make this one decision, it's okay. I got to make a million other decisions. So it's okay if I don't make this one decision, you know, there's a lot to do.
I don't need to be in wardrobe. I always say that. You can do rack check. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, there's a ton. We ran Marin. The wardrobe people loved us because they'd show us choices, and I go, "What do you think?" You know, well, this one, and I say, "Well, why do you think that one?" They give me a reason. I go, "All right, sounds like you know what you're doing. Sounds like you got a good idea there. So let's do what you say."
I mean, how many episodes did you do of Marin?
We did 4 seasons. It was probably around 50 because each season was, I don't know, whatever, 12, 13 or something like that. So, yeah. But that was IFC. And that was a pleasure because it was low budget. They just leave you alone. It was wonderful. So, yeah.
And I mean, did you find that was it hard to produce? Because, I mean, how big was your staff?
The first season, so that was a show that was created by this guy, Duncan Birmingham. We didn't create it, but he wrote the pilot. He was a young writer. He wrote the presentation. And then with Mark, so that season, the first season, when they picked it up, it was Mark Maron, who's a very good writer, but had no writing experience for sitcoms. He's a stand-up. This guy Duncan Birmingham, who was a young guy who they could exploit. So he had no experience, and it was me and my partner, and that was it. So we were the ones with any real sitcom experience. But then as each season went, we picked up a couple more writers, and we rounded it out. But it was a wonderful experience. But the budget was tiny. The budget was like nothing. It was nothing.
Yeah.
And we shot each episode in 2.5 days. So.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, as long as someone's finger wasn't in front of the lens, we got it. Move it on. So. Yeah, that was such a great experience, and no one remembers that. No one remembers, like, hey, the show it wasn't that perfectly lit. Yeah, it's okay. But people like the writing, they like the acting. That's the important thing. you know, so what if the camera went like this a little bit?
Right. My partner always was like, when you're like, he's like, they're doing laundry. They're paying their they're paying their bills while they watch this. Like that, like the people at home.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They're like they're like they're listening. They're half, you know, they're
not even
know.
anymore. Now they're on their phones and watch. I mean, now they're really not watching the show. And he's right, because like everyone, you know, Siebert used to say the same thing. He'd say like, yeah, they're reading People magazine. Not anymore. They're not. Now they're watching the show and on TikTok and getting text messages. They're not paying attention.
They're reading the live tweeting of other people
watching the show for them. So
right.
It's an odd time, but yeah. So what excites you then going forward? What as we wrap it up, what is your what excites you now?
In entertainment?
Yeah.
Or just,
yeah, as a writer, yeah.
I mean, I like what I always liked, honestly. Like, I feel like right now, I want to, the thing that I want to do is I want to try new things, but I also, and this is like, but also I feel like as I get older, like you have to always write what's sort of like, I don't know, is like personal to you. Like, I don't know, this is because then it sort of seems inauthentic.
Right.
But having said that, like, I think that I would really like to get back into animation. I feel like I know it's like, I feel like features, like I feel like weirdly streaming has opened that up a little bit too, because like, you know, it's hard to get a movie out in the theaters. I mean, especially now.
Yeah.
It's not a Marvel thing or something like that. So like there might be like avenues to go with streaming movies and stuff like that. But like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't have a good answer to that question, because I still really like, I still feel like I always have ideas, but, and honestly, like more often than not, like I'm looking to collaborate with more people, different people, you know, because
not necessarily on-air talent, but writers as well.
Other writers. Yeah. I just feel like, you know, if you're lucky, you have a long career and a lot of different types of careers. And, you know, my partner and I always said, like, we've sort of had an open marriage a little, because we started out together. And, you know, you work very closely with a writing partner, and we worked together for many, many years. And then we sort of split on staff for a while, and then we came back together for a while, and then now we're separate again. But
was that hard for you when you're writing after you split, to start writing alone, let's say, even on staff? Because this is the first, you have somebody to bounce an idea off of. Now you're on, you know, you're looking at that blank page by yourself.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to be in that. It's definitely hard. And I feel like I'm getting better at like sort of reaching out to other writers and just sort of like, can you look at, because it's like, my wife can't hear it anymore, you know? Like, you go walk into the kitchen, it's like, would this character say that? She's like, I don't know. Like, what are you talking about? So I have to, I just feel like you have to, I guess you learn to sort of like mute your ego a little bit, and just sort of like let other, like, sometimes you just have to talk it out, and that's what a partner was for, you know? But I don't even know if I answered your question.
That's okay. We're chatting. What about advice for aspiring writers? What do you tell them? Either about the craft or about the business.
I mean, to get in now, I think that starting out, the best thing about now to me is that it seemed like in the beginning when we started, it was really all about like, what's the spec of the big show? Which there's there's an art to that, because, being on staff and being a good staff writer means that you're using your talent to sort of like mold it. You mold your voice to be this voice of the show. Like
Exactly.
you're not there to have your own opinions, like write for this character, write for this show.
Right.
But now I just feel like it's all about your own voice. It's all about creating something, like a friend of mine has a much younger sister who's trying to break in, and like she wrote a script and I thought it was pretty good. Like she had a specific voice, and she's like, she's like got an actor friend, she lives in New York, and she's like, I was thinking of just like shooting 10 minutes of this, like just getting a camera and this and that. I'm like, yes, do that. Right. Somebody will, like the stuff that I want to do now, like I know it's time consuming, but it's like, you got to take that next step. If you have an idea, write it, and that's something that I didn't do enough of, I feel like, back in the day. And because it was really like not part of the,
you didn't need to. I mean, you're exactly right. Your job was not to have your own voice. Your job was to capture the voice of the existing show. And so you don't want to have your voice. Your job is to blend in, and but now it's very different. And I think it's actually harder to have your own, to figure out what your voice is, have that confidence, especially when you're young. You're like, I don't know, what's my voice,
That's a good point. No, I think that maybe there was some comfort in the guidelines.
I think so. Yeah.
Like I've watched 100, it's like I've seen Friends a million times. I can write.
Right. You know what Joey's going to say. Right. You know what Phoebe's going to say when in this situation, because she's out there, and but what's your voice? Like, I don't know, you got to find that.
I remember I always used to think that too. Even, it's like, like an executive wants to, like, they don't know what they don't know what these characters are. They don't like,
right.
So, but then that's, look, even before I was a writer, or while I was trying to be a writer, I was a reader. I worked at Sony and I did coverage.
Right.
And I remember even then, that was another thing that actually, that's something that I also would recommend to people, is to read.
Right.
Read TV scripts, read good pilots, read good screenplays, like read good writing, because it's really helpful.
Right.
Some people don't like to do that because they feel like but I don't know if I agree with that. I think that it's you can tell when something is like sort of economically written and that. And I remember even back then, like doing so much reading, I'm like, oh, I can tell that this is like a good writer or a good script or something like that.
Yeah, you can totally tell. You would read, like, I remember reading like an old Larry Sanders, like, oh my God, it just feels so real. It doesn't feel like it's contrived or forced. Yeah.
That was our first. We wrote a Larry Sanders, and I think we wrote a Curb, like really, really early.
Like Curb was after Seinfeld.
Yeah, we wrote a Curb like right when it came out, like in the early, because that show's been on forever.
I didn't know. I don't remember how many years. I thought Curb. My mind, it's only been on for 10 seasons, but you're saying it's not.
And it was a great piece of advice that we got from like an agent. They were like, you should, because I remember at the time, it's like, oh, the show isn't written, it's improvised.
Right.
But you should write a version of what you think it is.
Right.
That's the other thing too. Remember back in the day when like people would like, after a while, everybody would write their own. Everyone was writing the same specs, the Drew Careys and the news radio. So like, you try and do something to get noticed. Like I remember somebody wrote a really filthy Full House.
Right.
I don't even remember who it was.
I don't remember that. Okay.
But it was like, oh, that at least is going to get you noticed. And that's, that, you know what I mean? Like, honestly, like you have to, you got to make some noise, I guess.
Yeah. And now it's hard to know exactly what to write. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't solve it today.
No, we didn't fix anything for anybody, but it was interesting to hear about your experience. I thought it was great that we ran into each other. Now we have a friendship.
you're a name that I had heard of, and I knew of your podcast and your TikToks and everything. And I'll say this again, live on the air. Like, I really admire you sort of putting yourself out there and sort of saying, I have something, I have all this experience, and this is a good example of like the things that people should be doing too, because I listen to all these podcasts all the time, and no matter how many stories you hear, it's always interesting, and especially if it's stuff that you can relate to, and it's like, oh, I had that same experience but different, and you and I have led some kind of parallel lives.
And you hear patterns. At least I've picked up patterns. I don't know if people have listened to all my episodes. You're like, oh, it's not, when I hear how did someone break in? Everyone's story is different, but there's similarities in terms of like, they don't quit, or they take whatever job is beneath them and they take one below it, and you just get as close as you can to the job you want, and then hopefully talent, experience, and luck will fall your way. That's a dog barking. All right. John, what a great conversation. Thank you so much for being on my little show, and sharing your experience and wisdom with everyone. That's it.
My pleasure.
Thank you again.
This was really fun. I really I enjoyed this very much.
It was my pleasure, really. Thank you so much again. Don't go anywhere. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Until next week, keep writing. And remember, we got lots of great resources on my website, michaeljamin.com. You can sign up for my newsletter and all that stuff, and all that free stuff. All right, everyone, thanks so much. Until next week.
This has been an episode of Screenwriters Need to Hear This with Michael Jamin and Phil Hudson. If you're interested in learning more about writing, make sure you register for Michael's monthly webinar at michaeljamin.com/webinar. If you found this podcast helpful, consider sharing it with a friend and leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. For free screenwriting tips, follow Michael Jamin on social media at Michael Jamin Writer. You can follow Phil Hudson on social media at Phil A. Hudson. This podcast was produced by Phil Hudson. It was edited by Dallas Crane. Music by Ken Joseph. Until next time, keep writing.